Maybe you are smiling right now, talking to people, answering messages, going through your responsibilities, and pretending that everything is okay. But somewhere deep inside, you are tired. Not just physically tired, but tired in a way that sleep cannot fix. Your mind has been carrying thoughts you never speak about. Your heart has been carrying pain you don't know how to explain. You wake up, you continue your day, you do what you have to do, but deep inside there is a quiet voice saying, I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. And perhaps nobody around you knows how exhausted you really are. They see your smile, but they don't see the tears you hide. They see you functioning, but they don't see how much strength it takes just to get through an ordinary day. Sometimes you become tired of being the strong one, tired of telling everyone, I'm fine, when you are not fine. Tired of encouraging other people when you secretly need encouragement yourself. Tired of being patient when your heart is desperate for relief. Tired of making do while wondering when the answer will come. Tired of praying while fighting thoughts that tell you nothing is going to change. And maybe you feel guilty because you think a strong believer should never feel this way. But remember this, being exhausted does not make you a bad believer. Feeling overwhelmed does not mean your faith has disappeared. Having moments when you cry, struggle, or feel weak does not mean Allah has abandoned you. Look at the lives of the people Allah chose and honored. They were not people who never experienced pain. Prophet Yaqub experienced such deep grief that he lost his eyesight from sorrow, yet he continued turning toward Allah. Prophet Ayyub endured tremendous hardship, yet he continued calling upon his Lord. Prophet Yunus experienced darkness and distress, yet even there, his dua reached Allah. These stories teach us something beautiful. Being close to Allah does not mean you will never experience weakness. Sometimes, your weakness becomes the very moment when you discover how completely you need your Lord. There are moments when Allah allows you to realize that you cannot carry everything by yourself. You try to control every situation, every relationship, every outcome, every unanswered question. You tell yourself that you have to figure everything out. You think you must know what tomorrow will bring. But eventually, the heart becomes exhausted because it was never created to carry the entire future. You were created to worship Allah, to take the means available to you, to make your effort, and then to place what you cannot control into the hands of the one who controls everything. Sometimes weakness is not the end of your strength. Sometimes weakness is the beginning of tawakkul. Maybe today you are disappointed because something you desperately wanted did not happen. Maybe someone you trusted walked away. Maybe you made dua for something for months, perhaps even years, and you still do not understand why Allah has not opened that door. Maybe you are struggling with your future, your family. You may feel weak because you have fallen into the same mistake again and again. You may look at yourself and think, how can Allah still forgive me after everything I've done? You may feel ashamed to raise your hands in dua because you believe you are not worthy of asking any more. But never let your sins convince you that the door of Allah is closed. The very fact that your heart feels regret can be a reason to return. Allah does not ask you to come back as a perfect person. Come back broken, come back tired, come back crying, come back after falling, come back even if you have returned 100 times before. The important thing is that you keep turning back to Him. Sometimes we misunderstand strength. We think strength means never crying, never admitting that we are struggling, never asking for help, and never feeling afraid. But real strength can be recognizing your weakness and still turning toward Allah. Real strength can be saying, Ya Allah, I cannot do this without you. Real strength can be putting your forehead on the ground during sujood and finally allowing yourself to stop pretending. You don't have to impress Allah with your strength. He already knows your weakness. He already knows your heart. And perhaps the most sincere dua you make will come from the moment when you finally admit, My Lord, I need you. So if your heart feels heavy today, don't rush away from this reminder. Stay here for a few moments. Take a slow breath. Put aside the pressure to have every answer. You don't need to solve your entire life tonight. You don't need to know exactly how everything will work out. You only need to remember who is holding your life. The same Allah who brought you through every difficult day you thought you would never survive is still with you. Think about all the moments you thought you were finished, yet somehow you made it to this moment. You survived things you once believed would destroy you. Perhaps you don't recognize your own strength, but Allah knows every step that brought you here. And maybe this is the reminder your heart needed today. You don't have to be strong all the time. You are allowed to feel tired. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to admit that something hurts. You are allowed to say, Ya Allah, I need your help. Your weakness does not make you worthless, and your exhaustion does not mean Allah has forgotten you. Sometimes the heart becomes closest to Allah when everything else has become too heavy to carry. So don't be ashamed of your weakness. Take it to Allah. Take your fear to Him. Take your confusion to Him. Take your tears to Him. Take the parts of your heart that nobody else understands to Him. Because perhaps the place where you feel weakest today will become the place where you experience the greatest closeness to your Lord. There is something incredibly comforting about knowing that Allah knows exactly how you feel. There are people in your life who love you, but they may not understand everything you are going through. You might try to explain your pain, but sometimes even your own words are not enough. You may sit in front of someone and say, "I'm okay," because you don't know how to explain what is happening inside you. But Allah does not need an explanation. Allah is Al-Alim, the all-knowing. He knows what you are feeling before you find the words to describe it. He knows the condition of your heart even when your tongue remains silent. Allah knows the tears that nobody else sees. He knows about the nights when you quietly cried and then wiped your face before anyone noticed. He knows the moments when you locked your door because you needed to be alone. He knows when you smiled in front of your family while carrying sadness inside. He knows the tears that never became visible because you held them back. Nothing about your pain is hidden from Him. People may ask, "What's wrong?" and you may simply say, "Nothing." But Allah knows the entire story behind that nothing. He knows what happened, why it hurt, how deeply it affected you, and how long you have been carrying it. Allah also knows the battles you never explained to anyone. There may be struggles inside you that you are embarrassed to talk about. Perhaps you are fighting negative thoughts, fear, loneliness, regret, temptation, disappointment, or a weakness that you desperately wish you could overcome. Maybe you look at other people and think they are doing better than you, while nobody knows the battle you are fighting just to keep moving forward. But Allah knows. Before anyone knew your struggle, Allah knew it. Before you understood what was happening inside your own heart, Allah already knew. And knowing that should bring comfort, because the one who knows your weakness is also the one whose mercy is greater than your weakness. Sometimes you want to make dua, but you don't know what to say. You raise your hands, and suddenly your mind becomes empty. You have so much pain inside you, yet you cannot turn that pain into sentences. You may simply sit there and whisper, "Ya Allah," and then become silent. You might cry instead of speaking. You might not even know exactly what you are asking for. But remember, Allah does not require beautiful words from a broken heart. He knows what you mean before you finish your sentence. He knows what your silence means. He knows what your tears are saying. Even when you cannot explain your pain, Allah understands it completely. The Quran reminds us again and again that Allah knows what is within the hearts. This means there is no hidden corner of your heart that Allah does not know. He knows the thoughts you keep private. Maybe there is something you have been carrying for a very long time. Maybe you have made dua about it so many times that you feel tired of asking. You might wonder whether Allah is listening because the situation still looks exactly the same. But remember that Allah's knowledge is not limited to what you can see right now. You see today, Allah knows tomorrow. You see the problem, Allah knows the wisdom behind what you are experiencing. You see a closed door, Allah knows what is behind that door and what would happen if it opened. So when you make dua, don't think you are informing Allah about something He doesn't know. You are turning toward the one who already knows everything and asking Him, with humility, to take care of what you cannot carry. And perhaps you need to stop saying only what you think you are supposed to say in your dua. Speak honestly to Allah. If you are afraid, tell Him you are afraid. If you are exhausted, tell Him you are exhausted. If you don't understand, tell Him you don't understand. If your heart is hurting, tell Him that it hurts. If you are struggling to have patience, ask Him for patience. If you feel far from Him, ask Him to bring you closer. Your dua does not have to sound perfect. It has to be sincere. Sometimes the simplest word spoken with a broken heart can be more meaningful to you than a long speech you don't truly feel. Never forget that Allah knows you more completely than anyone else ever could. People may know your name, your appearance, your work, your habits, and parts of your story. But Allah knows everything. He knows the version of you that nobody has ever seen. He knows who you were before people knew you. He knows what you are becoming. He knows every mistake you regret and every good deed you wish you could do more of. He knows every time you tried again after failing. He knows every time you fought against giving up. And He knows the effort behind the moments when nobody applauded you. So tonight, or whenever you hear this reminder, stop for a moment and remember, you do not have to convince Allah that you are hurting. He already knows. You do not have to prove that your tears are real. He already knows. You do not have to explain every detail of your struggle. He already knows. Just turn toward Him. Raise your hands, even if they are trembling. Make dua, even if your voice is broken. Cry, even if you cannot speak. And say from the deepest part of your heart, "Ya Allah, you know me. You know what I am carrying. You know what I need. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but you do. So I place my heart, my worries, my future, and my entire life in your care." And remember that the one who knows exactly how you feel is also the one who can bring peace to the heart that is hurting. There is a difference between feeling weak and being defeated. You can feel exhausted and still continue. You can feel afraid and still take another step. You can cry and still have faith. You can struggle to understand what Allah is doing and still choose to trust Him. Weakness is a feeling, defeat is a decision to give up completely. Sometimes you may look at yourself and think, I'm not strong anymore, simply because you are tired of fighting. But perhaps you are stronger than you realize, because despite everything you have been carrying, you are still here. You are still searching for Allah. You are still listening to reminders. You are still making an effort to pray. That means the story is not over. Think about how many times you continued even when you didn't feel like continuing. Perhaps there were days when getting out of bed felt difficult, but you still got up. Perhaps your heart was broken, but you still performed salah. Perhaps you were worried about your future, but you still made dua. Perhaps you were disappointed by people, but you still tried to remain patient. Maybe your iman felt weak, but somewhere inside you there was still a desire to return to Allah. Never underestimate that desire. Sometimes faith does not look like an emotional feeling of strength. Sometimes faith looks like quietly saying, Ya Allah, I am struggling, but I am still coming back to you. Look at the example of Prophet Yaqub. He experienced a grief so deep that it became part of his life. He loved his son Yusuf deeply, and when he was separated from him, his heart suffered tremendously. This was not a small sadness. It was a grief that lasted for years. Yet the Quran does not present Yaqub as someone whose grief made him a failure. Instead, we see a servant of Allah carrying enormous pain while continuing to turn toward his Lord. His sorrow did not make him faithless. His tears did not make him weak in the sight of Allah. His pain became part of his relationship with Allah. And then he said something incredibly powerful, ***, I only complain of my suffering and my grief to Allah, ***. This statement from the Quran should change the way we think about emotional pain. Yaqub did not pretend that he was not hurting. He did not deny his sadness. He did not say, a believer is not supposed to feel this way. He acknowledged his grief, but he directed it toward Allah. There is a difference between complaining about Allah and complaining to Allah. One turns the heart away from Him, the other turns the heart toward Him. Yaqub teaches us that you can be deeply hurt and still remain deeply connected to your Lord. Maybe you have been ashamed of your emotions because you think crying means you are weak. Maybe someone told you to just be strong, and you started believing that you were not allowed to feel tired. Maybe you have hidden your sadness because you were afraid people would think your faith was weak. But emotions are part of being human. Even the people Allah honored experienced sorrow, fear, loneliness, and hardship. The goal is not to become a person who never feels pain. The goal is to become a person who knows where to take that pain. When your heart becomes heavy, take it to Allah. When your eyes fill with tears, let those tears fall in sujood. When your chest feels tight, turn your heart toward the one who created it. Your tears can become part of your conversation with Allah. Sometimes you may make a long dua and feel nothing. Other times, you may say only a few words and suddenly begin crying. Don't be embarrassed by those tears. They are not necessarily signs that you are falling apart. They can be signs that your heart is finally releasing what it has been carrying. There may be things you cannot tell your closest friend, things you cannot explain to your family, things you don't even fully understand yourself. But you can take them to Allah. Sit with Him in the quietness of the night. Put your forehead on the ground and allow your heart to speak. Perhaps you have been praying for something for a long time, and you are becoming emotionally exhausted. You might wonder, how much longer do I have to wait? You might look at other people and see their lives moving forward while you feel stuck in the same place. You may even wonder whether your weakness means you are failing. But remember, continuing to make dua while you are tired is not failure. Continuing to pray while you are struggling is not failure. Trying again after you have fallen is not failure. Sometimes the greatest victory is simply refusing to walk away from Allah during the hardest season of your life. There will be moments when you don't feel spiritually strong. There will be days when your concentration in salah is not what you want it to be. There will be moments when your heart feels distant and your dua feels difficult. Instead of using those moments as a reason to run away from Allah, use them as a reason to run toward Him. Say, Ya Allah, my heart is weak, so strengthen it. Say, Ya Allah, my faith feels small, so increase it. Say, Ya Allah, I am struggling to carry this, so help me carry it. You don't have to wait until you become spiritually perfect before turning to Allah. You turn to Allah because you need Him to help you become better. And don't compare your private struggle with someone else's public appearance. You don't know what another person is carrying, and they don't know what you are carrying. Someone may look incredibly strong while quietly fighting a battle you know nothing about. Your journey with Allah is personal. Your healing is personal. Your patience is personal. Allah sees the effort that nobody else sees. He sees every time you resist giving up. He sees every prayer you make when your heart feels tired. He sees every tear that falls when nobody is watching. Nothing is wasted with Allah. Even your struggle can become an act of worship when it brings you closer to Him. So if you are weak, there are moments in life when everything seems to become heavy at the same time. One problem arrives, then another, and before you have even had time to breathe, something else happens. You are trying to manage your responsibilities, your family, your work, your finances, your relationships, your future, and your own emotions, all at once. You keep telling yourself that you can handle it, but somewhere inside you know that you are exhausted. You may wake up already thinking about everything that needs to be fixed. You go through the day carrying responsibilities that nobody else can see, and at night you lie down with the same worries still sitting inside your chest. Maybe your burden is financial. You are worried about bills, debts, work, or providing for the people who depend on you. Maybe you are doing everything you can, but the numbers still don't seem to work. You make plans, you try again, you search for opportunities, and yet uncertainty remains. Or maybe your burden is your family. There may be tension at home, misunderstandings, responsibilities you never asked for, or someone you love who is going through a difficult time. Perhaps your burden is loneliness. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. You can have hundreds of contacts in your phone and still have nobody you feel comfortable calling when your heart becomes heavy. Maybe your burden is uncertainty about the future. You don't know where your life is going. You don't know whether the opportunity you are waiting for will come. You don't know whether the relationship will work out. You don't know whether your situation will improve. You have questions that don't have answers, and your mind keeps trying to predict tomorrow. But there is something you must remember when the future feels frightening. You were never asked to carry tomorrow today. Allah has given you this moment. Tomorrow belongs to Allah just as completely as today does. You can make plans, take responsibility, work hard, and make dua, but you do not have to mentally live through every possible future before it arrives. This is why the words of the Quran can become such a source of hope when you feel overwhelmed. ****. Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. ****. These words from Surah Al-Baqarah 2-286 are not telling you that every burden will feel easy. They are reminding you that Allah knows your capacity better than you know yourself. You may look at your situation and think, I cannot do this. And perhaps, by yourself, you cannot. But Allah is not asking you to carry life without Him. The verse does not mean you will never cry, never feel exhausted, or never reach a moment where you need help. It means that your Lord knows you completely, and nothing in your life is outside His knowledge or wisdom. Sometimes we think being able to bear something means being able to carry it without tears. But that is not necessarily true. You can bear something while crying. You can bear something while asking for help. You can bear something while making dua every night for Allah to make it easier. You can bear something while taking one day at a time. You can feel like you have reached your limit and still discover that Allah gives you enough strength for the next moment. There may be days when worship does not feel emotionally beautiful. You may stand for salah while your mind is full of worries. You may make sujood while thinking about your financial problems. You may recite Quran while tears are sitting in your eyes. You may make dua and feel as though your words are barely coming out. But keep going. Worship is not only for the days when you feel spiritually energized. Salah is also for the days when you are barely holding yourself together. In fact, those difficult prayers may become some of the most meaningful moments of your relationship with Allah because you are turning toward Him when you have nowhere else to place your heart. Think about how a child reaches for someone stronger when they cannot carry something themselves. They don't feel ashamed to ask for help. They simply know that the person beside them can carry what they cannot. Your relationship with Allah should teach your heart something similar. You don't have to prove that you can carry everything alone. You are a servant of Allah, and being His servant means recognizing your need for Him. Say, Ya Allah, I am overwhelmed. Say, Ya Allah, I don't know what to do. Say, Ya Allah, please make a way for me. There is no humiliation in needing Allah. It is one of the greatest truths about who we are. Perhaps tonight you are sitting there thinking about 10 different problems at once. Your mind is trying to solve everything before you sleep. You are thinking about yesterday, worrying about tomorrow, and forgetting that you are standing in the only moment you can actually live. So take a breath. You don't need to solve your entire life tonight. You don't need to know how every problem will end. You don't need to have every answer before you can sleep peacefully. Give Allah what you cannot carry. Make your dua, pray your salah, take the next responsible step. Then leave what is beyond your control with the one who has never lost control of anything. And if all you can do today is take one small step toward Allah, take it. If you cannot make a long dua, make a short one. If you cannot read many pages of Quran, read a few verses. If your heart is too tired for a long night of worship, protect your obligatory prayers and hold on to them. If you fall, return. If you become distracted, return. If you become exhausted, rest and return again. The goal is not to become someone who never struggles. The goal is to become someone who never completely lets go of Allah. So remember this: when the weight feels unbearable, you are not required to carry your entire future tonight. You are not required to solve every problem before you sleep. You are not required to understand every test before you can trust Allah. Just take the next step. Make the next prayer. Whisper the next dua. Take the next breath. Do the next thing that is right. And then place the rest in the hands of Allah. The road may still be difficult, but you do not have to walk it alone. The one who knows your burden knows your strength, the one who knows your weakness knows what you need, and the one who brought you this far is fully capable of carrying you through what comes next. When you feel like your life is becoming too difficult, one of the most comforting things you can do is look at the lives of the prophets. They were not strangers to pain. They were not people who lived without fear, grief, rejection, uncertainty, or hardship. They were the people Allah chose and honored, yet their lives contained some of the greatest trials. This should change the way you look at your own difficulties. Sometimes we mistakenly think that if Allah loved us, our lives would always be easy. But the lives of the prophets teach us something very different. Being tested does not automatically mean you are being rejected by Allah. Sometimes a difficult test is part of a journey that brings a servant closer to Him. Think about Prophet Ayyub. He experienced prolonged hardship and tremendous loss, yet he remained connected to Allah. His story is not simply the story of a man who suffered, it is the story of a servant who continued to turn toward his Lord despite suffering. Imagine waking up day after day with difficulties that do not disappear immediately. Imagine praying while still waiting for relief. Imagine carrying pain for a long period and still choosing not to abandon your relationship with Allah. Ayyub teaches us that patience does not always mean feeling strong. Sometimes patience means continuing to trust Allah while your heart is tired and you don't know when the difficulty will end. Then think about Prophet Yunus, surrounded by darkness. The darkness of the night, the darkness of the sea, and the darkness within the belly of the great fish. There was nowhere for him to turn except to Allah. In that moment, he called upon his Lord with the famous dua, ***, there is no deity except you, glory be to you. Indeed, I have been of the wrongdoers, ***. It is a reminder that even when you feel surrounded by darkness, Allah can hear you. You may feel trapped in a situation with no obvious way out. You may look around and see no solution. But the story of Yunus reminds you that your circumstances may be dark while the door to Allah remains completely open. Think also about Prophet Musa. He faced moments of intense fear and uncertainty. At one point, he and those with him were confronted by an overwhelming situation, with the sea ahead and danger behind. From a human perspective, it looked impossible. Yet Musa remained confident in Allah. His story teaches us that faith does not mean you never feel fear. Faith means fear does not have the final word. You can be standing in front of something that looks impossible and still believe that Allah can create a way where you cannot see one. Sometimes Allah allows you to reach a point where your own plans have no answer so that your heart learns to depend on His power. And then look at the life of Prophet Muhammad. He experienced rejection, loss, grief, betrayal, persecution, and enormous responsibility. He lost people he loved. He was rejected by people he wanted to guide. He faced hardship that would be difficult for any human being to carry. Yet he continued fulfilling his mission, worshipping Allah, making dua, showing mercy, and calling people toward truth. His life reminds us that experiencing pain does not make you less beloved to Allah. The most honored messenger experienced tremendous hardship, and yet those hardships did not mean Allah had abandoned him. This is something your heart needs to understand when you are going through a difficult season. Hardship is not proof that Allah dislikes you. A closed door is not automatically a sign that Allah is angry with you. A delay is not proof that your dua was ignored. A difficult chapter does not mean your entire story is cursed. Sometimes you are being tested in ways you do not understand because Allah knows what that experience will produce within you. Perhaps it will make you more patient. Perhaps it will soften your heart. Perhaps it will make you depend on Allah more sincerely. Perhaps it will teach you to appreciate blessings you once took for granted. Think about how different your heart can become after hardship. Before the test, perhaps you relied heavily on yourself. After the test, you discover how much you need Allah. Before the hardship, perhaps Salah was simply part of your routine. During the hardship, Salah becomes your place of refuge. Before the pain, perhaps you may dua quickly. During the pain, your hands remain raised for longer because you have finally realized how dependent you are upon your Lord. The hardship itself may not be something you would choose, but Allah can bring goodness from something you never wanted. So perhaps instead of asking only, "Why is Allah testing me?" begin asking a different question: "How can I turn toward Allah through this test?" That question changes everything. You may not know why the door closed, but you can choose patience. You may not know why the delay happened, but you can choose trust. You may not understand why someone left your life, but you can choose to ask Allah to heal your heart. You may not know when your circumstances will change, but you can choose to keep praying. You cannot always choose the test, but you can work on how you respond to it. And remember that every prophet had moments when the situation around them looked impossible. Yet Allah was writing a story they could not see at that moment. Ayyub could not see the end while he was suffering. Yunus could not see the shore while he was surrounded by darkness. Musa could not see the path through the sea before it opened. The Prophet Muhammad could not see every future victory while facing rejection and grief. But Allah knew the ending. This is the same reason you can continue walking even when you cannot see where the road leads. You don't need to know the entire plan when you trust the one who knows it. So when you are tested, don't immediately conclude that Allah has forgotten you. Look at the prophets. Look at their patience. Look at the doers. Look at how they turned toward Allah when circumstances became unbearable. Your hardship may be painful, but it does not have to become a distance between you and Allah. Let it become a bridge. Let your tears lead you to dua. Let your fear lead you to tawakkul. Let your uncertainty lead you to prayer. Let your weakness lead you to dependence. And when you cannot understand why you are being tested, hold on to this question, ***, how will I turn toward Allah through this test, ***. Because sometimes the greatest transformation does not happen when the test disappears. It happens when your heart discovers Allah in the middle of it. There comes a moment when you realize that you cannot depend on your own strength for everything. You can plan, work hard, think carefully, and do your best, but there will always be things beyond your control. There will be circumstances you cannot change, people whose choices you cannot control, doors you cannot force open, and outcomes you cannot guarantee. And perhaps this realization feels frightening at first, but it can actually become one of the most peaceful realizations of your life, because when you understand the limits of your own strength, you begin to understand the limitless strength of Allah. This is where the beautiful words ***, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, ***, become so meaningful. It means that there is no power and no strength except through Allah. These are not merely words to repeat with the tongue. They are words that can reshape the way you carry your life. When you say them sincerely, you are reminding yourself, I am not the ultimate source of my strength. Allah is. The strength that allows you to stand, continue, resist, work, pray, endure, and hope is ultimately from Him. Even the ability to keep going through a difficult day is a blessing from Allah. Think about how often you tell yourself, I have to be strong. You may feel responsible for everyone around you. You may believe that if you stop holding everything together, everything will collapse. You may think you cannot afford to have a bad day, cannot afford to cry, cannot afford to ask for help, and cannot afford to admit that you are tired. But you were never created to be independent of Allah. You were created to need Him. Your dependence upon Allah is not a weakness in your character. It is a truth about your existence. Every breath you take, every ability you have, every opportunity you receive is ultimately from Him. Tawakkul does not mean sitting back and doing nothing while expecting everything to change. Tawakkul means you do your part while trusting Allah with the outcome. You work, but you know that provision comes from Allah. You study, but you know that success is ultimately in His hands. You seek treatment and take reasonable means, while knowing that healing is from Allah. You make an effort to repair relationships, while knowing that you cannot control another person's heart. You prepare for the future, but you don't worship your plans. You take the means, then you place the result with Allah. This is where many of us become exhausted. We do our part, but then we continue trying to control the outcome. We send the message and then check our phone repeatedly. We submit the application and then spend hours imagining every possible result. We make dua and then become consumed by the question of when the answer will come. We make a decision and then torture ourselves by wondering whether we chose correctly. Tawakkul teaches the heart to say, I have done what I can. Ya Allah, now I leave what I cannot control with you. That does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never yours to control. So stop demanding that you be strong every second. You are allowed to have moments where you need to pause. You are allowed to say, Ya Allah, I am tired. You are allowed to take a breath and recognize that you cannot solve everything today. You are allowed to rest without feeling guilty. You are allowed to cry without thinking your faith has disappeared. Your responsibility is not to become a person who never feels weak. Your responsibility is to know where to turn when weakness comes. And when weakness comes, turn toward Allah instead of turning against yourself. Before making an important, sometimes the hardest part of a difficult season is believing that anything can ever change. When you have been dealing with the same problem for months or even years, your mind begins to accept it as your permanent reality. You start thinking, this is just how my life is going to be. You stop imagining another possibility because disappointment has trained you not to hope too much. But remember this, your current situation is not a promise about your future. What you see today is only one chapter. Allah can change circumstances in ways you could never predict, sometimes through a door you did not even know existed. Think about how quickly life can change. One phone call can bring unexpected news. One opportunity can open after years of waiting. One sincere dua can be followed by a chain of events you could never have planned yourself. A situation that seemed completely closed can suddenly become possible. This is part of the power of Allah. You look at the means and think there is no way forward, but Allah is not limited by the means you can see. You look at a closed door, while Allah can create another entrance. You see an obstacle, while Allah sees countless possibilities beyond it. Never confuse what you cannot see with what Allah cannot do. The Quran gives the believer a beautiful promise, ***. Indeed, with hardship comes ease, ***. Allah repeats this message in Surah Ash-Shah, reminding us that hardship is not the entire story. Notice that the Quran does not tell you to pretend hardship does not exist. It acknowledges hardship. Allah knows that there are seasons when life genuinely hurts. There are moments when your heart feels exhausted and your circumstances feel heavy. But Allah also reminds you that ease is connected to hardship. The difficulty you are experiencing today does not have to be the final chapter of your life. Perhaps you are looking at one painful situation and allowing it to define everything. A failed opportunity becomes, I will never succeed. A broken relationship becomes, I will never be loved again. A financial struggle becomes, I will always be poor. A mistake becomes, I will never become a better person. A period of loneliness becomes, nobody will ever understand me. But be careful with these conclusions. Pain can make temporary circumstances feel permanent. When the heart is exhausted, it can turn, this is difficult, into, this will always be difficult. But you do not know the future. Allah does. Never make a permanent conclusion from a temporary painful season. You may be walking through winter right now, but winter does not mean spring has been cancelled. You may be in a chapter of waiting, but waiting does not mean the story has ended. You may be standing in front of a closed door, but that does not mean Allah has no other door for you. Your current circumstances are real, but they are not necessarily permanent. Give yourself permission to hope again, not because you know exactly what will happen, but because you know the one who controls what happens. Sometimes Allah changes a situation gradually, and sometimes the change seems to happen suddenly. You may spend months making dua without seeing anything, then suddenly circumstances begin moving in a direction you never expected. A person enters your life. An opportunity appears. A problem resolves. Your heart changes. A door closes that later you realize needed to close. Something you once considered a disaster becomes the beginning of something better. You may not understand Allah's timing while you are inside the situation, but later you may look back and realize that Allah was arranging things while you were simply trying to survive the day. This is why patience must never be separated from hope. Sabr does not mean sitting in darkness and assuming the darkness will last forever. Sabr means continuing to obey Allah, continuing to trust Him, and continuing to move forward even when you cannot see the result yet. You can be patient and still ask Allah for relief. You can accept Allah's decree while still making dua for change. You can acknowledge that today is difficult without believing tomorrow must be the same. Patience says, I don't know when relief will come, but I refuse to believe that Allah is incapable of bringing it. Maybe right now you are standing at what looks like the end of the road. You have tried everything you know. You have asked people for help. You have made plans. You have worked hard. You have prayed. And still, maybe you have become so used to carrying everything alone that you no longer know how to ask for help. When something hurts, you disappear. You stop answering messages. You tell people you are busy. You keep your problems inside because you don't want anyone to see how much you are struggling. Perhaps you have convinced yourself that being strong means handling everything without anyone's support. But you were not created to live completely isolated. Allah created human beings with a need for connection, support, compassion, and community. You can be independent in many ways and still recognize that sometimes you need another person to help you carry what has become too heavy. There is nothing shameful about saying, I need help. Sometimes that sentence requires more courage than pretending everything is fine. You may be afraid that people will judge you, misunderstand you, or think less of you. But choosing to speak with someone trustworthy can be an important part of taking care of yourself. Find someone who listens without humiliating you, someone who genuinely wants good for you, someone who can remind you of Allah while also helping you think clearly. You don't have to tell everyone everything, but don't convince yourself that you must suffer in complete silence. Turning to Allah does not mean refusing every practical means available to you. Islam teaches us to rely upon Allah while taking the means. If you are facing financial difficulty, look for permissible ways to improve your situation. If there is conflict in your family, seek wise advice and take steps toward reconciliation where possible. If you are exhausted, allow yourself to rest. If you don't understand something, ask someone knowledgeable. If you are facing a serious personal difficulty, seek appropriate support. Making dua and taking action are not opposites. You can raise your hands to Allah and then get up and take the next practical step. Sometimes people misunderstand tawakkul and think it means doing nothing. They say, I trust Allah, while refusing to take any reasonable action. But true tawakkul does not mean abandoning responsibility. You trust Allah while doing what you are capable of doing. You apply for the job while trusting Allah for provision. You study while trusting Allah for the result. You seek advice while trusting Allah for guidance. You take care of your body while trusting Allah for health. You apologize when you have made a mistake while trusting Allah with how the other person responds. You do your part, then you leave the outcome to Allah. There is a beautiful principle often expressed through the phrase, tie your camel, then trust Allah, The meaning is simple and powerful: take the reasonable means available to you, and then place your trust in Allah. Don't leave the camel untied and then call it tawakkul if it walks away. Take responsibility for what Allah has placed within your ability, but don't make the mistake of believing that the outcome depends entirely upon you. Your effort matters, but Allah controls the result. Your responsibility is to act sincerely and responsibly. Your responsibility is not to control everything that happens afterward. Maybe you have been waiting for Allah to change your circumstances while there is one small step you already know you need to take. Perhaps you need to make that phone call. Perhaps you need to apologize. Perhaps you need to submit the application. Perhaps you need to organize your finances. Perhaps you need to ask someone experienced for advice. Perhaps you need to step away from something harmful. Perhaps you need to return to a prayer routine you have neglected. The step may seem small, but small steps can begin moving a life in a new direction. Don't wait for everything to become perfect before you act. Maybe you have been making dua for a long time and wondering, why hasn't anything changed? Remember, delayed does not mean denied. Allah knows what you cannot see. Sometimes He gives what you ask for, sometimes He delays it, sometimes He gives something better, and sometimes He protects you from something harmful. Your pain may bring you back to Salah, Quran, dhikr, and sincere repentance. You are not too broken to return to Allah. When everything else feels uncertain, Allah remains certain. Keep making dua, keep trusting Him, and never let a difficult season convince you that Allah has forgotten you. You may feel weak, but you are still here. You may have cried, fallen, and struggled, but you can still rise again. Don't compare your journey with anyone else's because Allah's timing is different for everyone. You don't have to be strong alone. Allah is your strength, So make this dua: Ya Allah, give me strength, peace, guidance, forgiveness, healing, patience, halal provision, and a heart that remains close to you. Protect me from despair and increase my trust in you. And remember, when you feel weak, don't run away from Allah. Run toward Him, If this reminder helped your heart, like, share, and subscribe. Someone you love may need this reminder today.